with the new international range, the premise really was evolution of what we did in Made in India. With Made in India, the idea was that we'll take every state, look at patterns, art which is inherent to every state, and then from there create tile patterns. And for the next workshop, the idea really was to now sort of, if we were to scale this up and say that, why don't we, instead of just looking at India, if you would look at influences from all across the world. And that's where the idea of international range sort of came about. Folk art, the reason why folk art is an interesting thing to look at, because it sort of is a reflection of that specific country, its culture, and a whole lot of other interconnected things as well. And the idea really was to look at countries in which you don't normally see their product as well. So typically you would see a lot of certain countries ka folk art, for example, but you would, for example, not many people knew what the folk art in, say, Hungary was, for instance, and how it has evolved over a period of time, how it's influenced by other elements as well.
Yeah, so we picked Sweden, Argentina and Japan.
Yeah.
And I was really happy with Japan and other places too.
Most of these places have really good art and folk art, so we were really happy to
Japan,
have all these
especially.
things as inspiration for the tiles.
The first country which we got was Mexico, and I was really happy with the chit we picked up because Mexico has a really colorful culture, and our inspirations were the festivals happening in Mexico. And the second one,
the other two countries that we got was Indonesia and Hungary. Hungary, none of us knew much about, so we were quite excited to know about a different culture altogether. And Indonesia, personally, is very close to my heart, so I was super thrilled to work on that.
I love the style that Japan has in terms of all their folk art, and it's quite simple where it needs to be in terms of forms, but it's also got a lot of detail and intricacies. So it was a really good experience to explore that and create something out of it.
For Sweden, we were inspired by the toy that has been there for a really long time, which is called the Dala horse, and which has now moved into different types of folk art using the same horse and flowers and other things. And we took inspiration from the Dala horse and minimalized it a little for the tile design. And for Argentina, they have an art form called fileteado, which is very much like our truck art, which we see on trucks in urban and rural spaces. They have it on wagons in Argentina, which has horses and dragons and type that's very decorative, just like ours.
So one of the tiles was inspired by this brushstroke painting that they do in Japan, which is exclusively used to paint cherry blossoms. It's called sumi-e, and it was really interesting to abstract that and then simplify it down to a pattern that repeats continuously for the flooring. So that was one of the arts. Or walls, yeah. And the other one from Japan was inspired from Wagasa, which is the treatment which is done to the oil painted umbrellas.
Yes.
And it was really exciting to see the different versions of that exist, and then capture that beauty in a tile and a shape.
for Mexico, we took actual skull as the inspiration because it's derived from the festival Day of Dead. And so the challenge here was how to fit a skull, the orientation of it on a square tile, because the skull has a rounded shape. So actually you can see our sketches over here when we were trying out things.
A lot of people would mind having a skull on a tile,
Yeah.
so we had to make sure that it's visually appealing to a wider audience. With the country Indonesia, we, after shortlisting a lot of elements that we chose, we finally decided to get inspired from the architecture. The gates of Bali is something that's very renowned over there, but the challenge that we faced was majorly to simplify it and to get it in a square form, which was extremely difficult, and I think that's why we didn't get past that. After that, we chose Batik as our inspiration, and what we basically did is lots and lots of sketches and tried to minimalize the intricate patterns of batik, and by the end of it we did manage to come up with something which looks gorgeous. And when it comes to colors, what we did is we tried to highlight the main colors that would represent Indonesia as a country, and we've gone ahead with mainly the shades of blues that could represent the country as a whole. With Hungary, we were when we read about Hungary and the culture, we realized that most of the folk arts were derived from nature, and it was really intriguing to know that how that as form elements could translate into different things. When it came to Mexico,
it was like they have a really colorful culture, and they celebrate life a lot. So yeah, and then was Indonesia.
yeah, Indonesia, we most of the folk arts were really detailed, were very intricate, and we were very excited to like figure a way out how to translate that into a minimal design so that it could become a tile design.
Yeah, we had to sketch out a lot of the folk art that we found and do some research on it, because especially with the fileteado, it's such a decorative art form that it was tough to get so much fit into like an 8x8 and see what would work on a wall as a pattern or separately, however you put it in a
I
space.
think one of the main challenges would be not to imagine it as a tile but as an entire flooring or a wall pattern that would repeat, and so how many colors to include in it, and what size should the main motif be, etc.
Yeah, and even for the Sweden Dala horse, it's a really nice unit in itself. So how we could explore that with other elements from their folk art, how to mix it together and match it. We can't go overboard because otherwise it looks too much, or we can't become too little, otherwise it looks very different from the art. So we had to keep a balance between them.
बहुत अच्छा था. I had a lot of fun doing this.
It was an enriching experience.
It was a really great experience. It was very new for me, and I'm very excited to see these tiles go on people's houses' floors.
Initially, when we started doing the entire process of designing a tile, we had no idea how it's going to turn out to be. But once we saw it, we were mesmerized. We couldn't believe that like what we designed actually came to life.
So one word for my tile collection would be elegant.
I think both are, the Argentina and Sweden one, are quite decorative.
So I think these two tiles are really evergreen and you can't really go wrong with them.
This tile is for Hungary. If I have to describe this in a word, it would be whimsical. This one was for Indonesia, extremely bold as a design. Last but not the least, this one's very close to our heart.
Yes.
This is for Mexico and extremely quirky.
The designs were beautiful, the folk art idea really clicked, and it gave us an opportunity to look at the worldwide scene for things that are obviously neglected and that people just take for granted in their countries. You know, like folk art is, we just take it for granted, but it has so many beautiful elements. And so we were able to pick those elements and then make them into tile designs. And finally we went to the production section, and that was really cool because you know, even though Idea Spice and BFT have worked together for so many years, but you know, actually translating the designs into production was something that took a while, getting the nitty-gritties right.
So the fun part about these workshops is that it's almost sort of, I think for everyone in the studio and everyone for BFT also, it becomes almost a back to school kind of exercise where within a day in a concentrated period of time we are sort of looking at conceptualizing, sketching, taking it onto the computer, and while the results don't come out perfect, we obviously have to do a lot of work after the workshop as well. The workshop at least allows us to sort of do this in a very boot camp kind of format. So you're sort of thinking very fast, you're ideating really fast, and also really editing really fast as well, where you sort of put up everything and then see what works, what doesn't work.
What I think is great about Idea Spice is that they have a really strategic view as well of what a brand should do and where it should be. And a lot of stuff that comes out is not just like knocking out brochures and websites, it's also like about how to position the brand what kind of products we should get into, what kind of positioning we should be in. I think that's made a world of difference to the brand. So, in fact, I think we had so much fun. We didn't realize that how the day went, and we were really pressed for time at the end to actually finalize all the designs. And I really hope that we have people on our Instagram page telling us what kind of workshops we should do in future, like what kind of designs we could do in future. So we could do like cool stuff and then tag you, and maybe there'll be a prize involved. So let us know if there's anything in particular, any range in particular that you think would work well for a workshop environment.